Hello, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. These are the top stories. A luxury apartment block built just 3 years ago has collapsed in Karaganda. Zhanaozen trial defendants report about torture and abuse during the investigation. Businessmen resorted to smashing glass at Chinese-Kazakh border to escape the locked building. Customs personnel does not let cargoes pass, demanding additional overweight fees. A multi-story apartment block collapsed yesterday morning in Karaganda. No one was hurt, only because residents were recently evacuated and the access to the building was blocked. Nevertheless, many people lost their belongings left in the apartments. The next report has more details. Half of the building has collapsed and the rest is still standing. The reason for the collapse is a vertical 10-centimeter deviation per day, say the emergency ministry personnel. Understandably, residents of the collapsed building and their neighbors are shocked. The rest of the apartment blocks are still in good condition visually. Even the first block looks undamaged. The collapse of the second block did not affect it. Nevertheless, residents of the luxury housing estate are less optimistic. Everyone crowded in the yard outside, afraid that their block might collapse at any time as well. As you can see, the destruction wave from the collapsed building immediately cracked the walls on the porch. You can see the basement of the collapsed building from here. The management of Promstroysnab company responsible for the building's construction is currently on the run, owing more than $20 million to different banks. The estate itself was built about 3 years ago, and it was revealed only later that the land was not suitable for any construction. Still, the building permit was granted and the estate was commissioned after all. Our damage amounts to $22,000, not counting mortgage paid, just furniture and repairs. An initiative group of local residents together with the official working group will be engaged in compensating the victims' damages. Not a single resident will be left on the street. Everyone will receive monetary compensation or new apartments. External geodetic survey shows no displacement in the structure of the first and the fourth blocks. Residents will be allowed to enter their apartments upon inspection of the basement. As of last night, the entire area of the estate was taken under 24-hour security to prevent looting. A number of Kazakhstan's businessmen cannot cross the Chinese-Kazakh border for already several days, refusing to pay additional fees imposed at the Khorgos customs checkpoint. Without the payment of €4 per kilo of additional weight, they are not allowed to exit the holding area at the border. Some businessmen resorted to smashing windows to escape. People stranded at Khorgos say they learned about the new rules only after crossing the Chinese border. Kazakh patrolmen never informed the citizens about the innovations either. The problems began at the customs office. Around 200 people were not able to reach the 3 buses that had been waiting for them since morning. Another rented vehicle that was waiting for businessmen had left ahead. Businessmen say they haven't eaten since morning, and one of the women suffers from diabetes, thus the forced hunger might negatively affect her health. Although customs officers promised to handle the issue with luggage, for the time being businessmen had nothing to do but wait. I've personally witnessed everything that happened on Friday. Apparently, someone said that no one wants to pay the additional €4, but no one asked us whether we want to pay or not. We're simply locked in here. The man in charge approached us and I asked him what was the reason for all this chaos. He said that no one wanted to pay €4, but I told him that we were never asked about payment and the exit was already closed when we came here. Now we don't know who can help us here anymore. Maksat Dasmagambetov, a defendant in the Zhanaozen trial, revealed during the Friday's hearing that the accused were subjected to torture and abuse while in the investigation ward. Judge Aralbay Nagashibayev seemed to ignore the statement and postponed the review of a petition submitted by the attorney of another defendant until Monday. Ardag Batiyeva asked to dismiss the testimony of a policeman summoned to court on Thursday, as the officer in question was the one to interrogate her client during the investigation.
Shamshurak Nuranova, the wife of defendant Baurjan Nepes, went to the square together with her husband on December 16 last year. After spending 3 hours there, they went back home. Nuranova says her husband didn't leave the house after that. 12 days later, she and her husband voluntarily came to the local DIA after seeing a search notice for Nepes on the street. We were told they will let him go in 3 days, but they wanted to question him first. I agreed and went home, and when I came back for my husband, it turned out they had already arrested arrested him. They told me that the sanction could last only 2 months, but it's been 4 months already. He didn't vandalize anything on December 16. I was with him and we went home together. I am a witness, but I am not allowed to testify because I am a spouse. Saulebay Sansızbayulu, the attorney of Baurujan Nepes, is also positive of his client's innocence and is certain that he will be able to prove that. I'm defending 2 citizens, Baurujan Nepes and Murat Kusparmakov. Initially there were 5 people, 3 of them were released and there are 2 left now. We are pleading not guilty and I'm going to maintain this position. Baurujan's wife commutes to act out trial once a week as she cannot come more frequently. Nuranova has no one to leave her 3-year-old son with. The woman says being deprived of the only breadwinner in the family is something she wouldn't wish even to her enemies. He's been in pre-trial detention center for more than 3 months now. It's their 4th month already. There are now 37 people who had been accused. Here I am visiting my husband and passing him food. I can't say I like the way the trial is going. Every time I come here, my heart aches. I can't come here every day. I am unemployed with children alone at home. During yesterday's trial, attorney Ardak Batieva voiced a protest as it appears that the police officer who recently stood as a witness had early interrogated her client, although according to law the complainant cannot interfere in the course of investigation. Based on this, the defendant's attorney requested the presiding judge to dismiss all accusations of the complainant. Aralbay Nagishibayev, the judge at the trial, said he will make an according decision on Monday. The hearing lasted for 1 hour, after which the judge announced a recess for the weekends.
Kazakhstan's expert community is evaluating the recently presented state program of the single industry cities development. The list includes 27 settlements. Representatives of the Economic Development and Trade Ministries discussed the project during a meeting in the Almaty's Political Decisions Institute. Despite a lot of criticism, the program launch was set for this summer.
The project of single industry cities development needs improvement, if not a complete overhaul. The analyst of the Policy Decisions Institute had a discussion about the document produced by the corresponding ministry. The economist Kanat Perentayev reproached present-day government officials with forgetting the Soviet experience. He recalls that back then a special group would be sent to a region in need of assessment. Then all further proposals were based on the results of the group's evaluation, whereas the current project reminds him of a plan detached from reality.
Во-первых, трудовая мобильность в Казахстане не появится до тех пор, пока не будет полноценного и причем неизбыточного.
Labor mobility will not develop until there is a full and access housing market. People should feel secure about leaving apartments in Almaty and moving to Akaruk because they would be provided with comparable housing conditions. And when someone comes to a bare field, they indeed are likely to contribute to social strain and trigger of conflicts between resident and non-resident population. In Zhanaozen, we could observe repatriates blamed for underemployment.
Переводили стрелку на Уралмана, что понаехали, там все рабочие места забрали.
A few days ago, the officials assured the government they would reason everything out. The Single Industry Towns Development Project has finally been presented. It will cost the government more than $135 million. At the end of June, the Prime Minister will study the amended project. One of his inferiors, Bakhtijan Sagintayev, noted that the main source of problems for single industry towns is unemployment. It was decided to attract young specialists to troubled regions.
В 3 городах вообще предприятия сегодня не работают.
There are 3 towns with non-functioning industrial enterprises, but this doesn't make them prospectless. We can reanimate the old enterprises or build the new ones. And through this countrywide program that will soon be completed, we will run yearly prospects diagnostics for each town. Every unpromising town will be immediately relocated.
Если он не перспективный, сразу надо его перевозить.
It should be noted that the government began to talk about helping the single industry cities right after the tragedy in western Kazakhstan. The labor conflict in Kazmunaygaz divisions resulted in month-long strike of oilers, which eventually uncovered problems of the entire region. The events in Zhanaozen forced the government to pay attention to the needs of Kazakh people.
Вот эта программа, да, развития моногородов не пойдет полностью.
The given project is bound to fail for only simple reason. We already have another project in place, namely Nurli-Kosh, which lists depressed regions and villages whose population is to be resettled to places with better conditions. This means that no matter how much money we will invest in single industry cities development, it will be consumed by the flow of internal immigrants from the neighboring, heavily depressed villages. This will result in closing schools and refusal to repair roads and power lines. They will start moving to the single industry cities, thus making the situation even worse. Experts have reasons to be pessimistic. They recall how back in 2002, Imangalitas Magambetov, who was the Almaty administration head, already advocated single industry cities. He even presented a development project, but then he was transferred to Astana and the idea died out.
Hearings on the case of Mukhtar Jakishev, the ex-head of Kazatomprom, are carried out without his presence, reported on Friday Jakishev's wife, Jamila. According to Jamila Jakisheva, hearings were held at the start of the week, but then she stopped receiving any notifications for them. The judge is not reacting to the daily appeals from Mukhtar Jakishev and his lawyer Nurlan Beysikiev. The trial is attended by another attorney, Gulmira Shaldykova, who has no agreement with the defendant. Even Jakisheva has not seen the newly appointed lawyer. She was also denied a meeting with her husband. To recall, the former head of Kazatomprom refused from participating in the trial until the process is open. There is absolute lawlessness. I cannot meet my husband, and he is now unable to pick his own lawyer. I believe that his sentence is already prepared. They already know his verdict. Kazakhstan's Communist Party is still fighting against the recent decision to extend the suspension of the operations of the already suspended party, made by 2 regional courts. Communists are asking for help from foreign embassies and are also planning to submit appeals to senior authorities.
Kazakhstan's Communist Party is seeking help from abroad. After the court's decree on the suspension of the party's operation, its leaders are appealing to the embassies of all the countries present in Kazakhstan. This way, Aziz Aldamzharov, a public activist, now the ex-leader of the party, hopes to draw the president's attention to the problems of the oldest party in the country, which jump-started his own career a long time ago. This is so unfortunate when we are forced to seek help from foreign countries. I wish we weren't doing it, but we have no other choice here. Our presence on the political scene is a burden for the authorities. However, they cannot just take and shut us down, as it will raise a public resonance, so suspension seems like the perfect solution. Placing us into hibernation like a computer is very handy for them at the moment. As previously reported, regional courts in Kostanay and Kokshetau fined and then suspended the operation of the Communist Party branches based on the following actions of its leaders. One had published an information digest, while the name of the other one was mentioned in an article about a meeting with the head of the local administration. The courts must have taken these cases extremely serious, since they didn't even wait until the end of the last suspension term before issuing new ones. Last October, Almaty City Court judge ruled that Aziz Aldamzharov had no right to collaborate with the People's Front movement. The punishment was familiar, a fine and 6-month suspension of his branch operation. This had prevented the parties participating in the parliamentary elections. Nowadays, we can observe how the government is intensely interfering with political parties' activities. This is all about latent attempts to suppress the opponents. They invent all kinds of motives just to stop us. The regime is getting very authoritarian, so to speak. It's fighting with opposition. Lawyer Sergei Utkin is also concerned with the court's hasty decisions. The expert explains that stretching out the plan to terminate the Communist Party would still allow its members make statements and publicly express their opinions about the ongoing events in the country. Perhaps this is why the authorities decided not to take any chances. We all know that it's not about the article, as indeed a few people really care of who mentioned whom in the publications, etc. Most likely the authorities are just thinking ahead about what may happen after the 24th, since the party could start calling for rallies again and engage in other actions. The measure taken towards the oldest party in the country looks rather selective. After all, it's doubtful that a similar outcome can be expected if the situation was linked to the ruling party Nuratan. Back in 2008 and 2010, the head of Kazakhstan Temircholu Jaksilbek Pulkiyev and the healthcare minister Jaksilbek Doskaliyev were arrested and sentenced to prison terms. Both of the officials were Nuratan members. There are many other minor cases of corrupted officials with memberships in the president's party, but courts never considered it possible to equate party member behavior with the operation of the entire organization until now.
Country's MPs and officials harshly criticized the quality of bills developed in Kazakh language. Justice Minister Berik Imashov went as far as saying that bills developed in Russian are then frequently mistranslated, which often results in the distortion of their overall meaning. Berik Imashov immediately corrected himself, saying the problem was allegedly being slowly resolved. To avoid mistakes, a unified law terms dictionary was created for all government agencies in Kazakhstan, containing 30,000 words and titles. A newly established linguistics center is doing its best to correct mistakes, which cut the number of documents returned from the parliament in half. The most illiterate agencies will be dealt with through disciplinary sanctions. The senators, however, are still dissatisfied with the quality of translators, as well as the fact that they are required at all. Are the linguistic center specialists really fluent in the official language? When will the Russian to Kazakh translations finally end? And when will the laws be elaborated in the official language to begin with? The clashes between the police and residents of the Akın-Sara village in Almaty region were caused by a murder of the 69-year-old repatriate from China, Nurgaysha Ishman. Several news outlets called the situation mass disorders, although local DIA refutes the information.
Late at night, 3 masked men broke into the house of a retired old woman and demanded she pay them 58,000 yuan. The woman did not have the amount and criminals beaten her to death. At the time of robbery, a daughter-in-law and grandchildren were in the house of the murdered Nurgaysha Ishman. They survived by chance. We hid in the back room late in the morning. When all was quiet, I opened the door and left the room. I saw her body on the terrace, but was afraid to look at it. So I ran out into the street and started shouting for the neighbors. The ban on video recording and the procedure of taking the body for the forensic detonated the conflict. The husband of the murdered woman, referring to Muslim rights, refused to give his wife's body. He was supported by relatives and other villagers. I told the police that I will not give them the body. If they want the facts, look at it. Everything is clear here. But they say these are not the facts and the court will need an expert opinion. I had to agree to that. Almaty regional DIA heads and the prosecutors came to the scene to settle the conflict. After the threat to open fire and lengthy negotiations, the body was finally taken to Taldykorgan for forensic examination. The bodies have to be taken from the scene for the forensic medical examination. This is done to determine the cause of death and location of injuries. This provides the necessary evaluation for the purpose of criminal investigation and trial. The village of Akın-Sara is mostly inhabited by repatriates from China. Villagers say that they are living in a powder keg. There are rumors that the village is controlled by a criminal group which steals livestock and equipment and beats local villagers, while law enforcement officers are engaged in extortion. The district police officer is constantly nagging us, intimidating with fines, forcing to mow his grass and take out the garbage. We give him money or sheep, but when he runs out of meat, he ruffles us again. Relatives of Nurgaysha Ishman are now planning to leave Kazakhstan. They fear for their safety and the future of their children. How can we live here if every year one of us is killed? What kind of future we are waiting for here? If the gangs will go on killing us, then who will be left here? No one investigates these crimes. The police only promises to look into them. As soon as we have 40-day commemoration, we are moving back to China. The conflict in Akın-Sara resonated with both general public and law enforcement agencies. Eskeldin District Prosecuting Office is set to look into all the unsolved crimes in the village and take due measures.
Names of some of the top officials appear to be linked to a regular robbery case in Almaty. The wife of one defendant says the prosecution has no evidence of the crime except for the testimony of the victim, who was supposedly assaulted and robbed back in October 2009. Fingerprints found at the crime scene do not match those of the defendants, and even the prosecutor Mehdi Nazarov says the accused are likely innocent, although he can do nothing about it but follow the orders of his superiors.
He openly said that victims are assisted by Aslan Musin from the president's administration. We immediately sent him an email saying that this name is used by Kurbanbayev during a trial, but haven't received any response yet. Prosecutor Mehdi Nazarov says he knows the accused are innocent, but he cannot do anything about it since he was given a clear order. Bajgitov's attorney Nurlan Ustemirov stated that the claimant Kurbambayev has been arrested in the past for extortion. Before appealing to the court, the supposed victim had met with Bajgitov and asked for $1,200,000. Later in their first testimony, Kurbambayevs estimated their damage as the cost of a couple of cell phones and $200, but then the amount was changing every day and now it's officially around $10,000.
Police has broken up a rally of people with hearing disabilities in Kazakhstan. The protest was attended by around 40 people, and although the action was silent, law enforcement officers deemed it as disturbing the public order. Protesters have gathered in front of the city administration and tried to use sign language to convey their problems to the representatives of the Employment and Social Programs Department. According to the head of the hearings impaired community, Altina Yapova, the majority of disabled are jobless due to the shutdown of the enterprise, while it is practically impossible for them to find another job. Many of them are in need of state aid to resolve housing problems. People with hearing impairment are demanding to increase their pensions and provide social benefits. In total, Kazakhstan branch of hearing impaired community has 776 people. The response of the authorities is yet unknown. However, the deputy head of Employment and Social Programs Department, Jami Zhaniyazov, says the department was forced to submit an appeal to the police since the protest was unsanctioned. Miners in Karaganda predict a new wave of mass migration abroad. One of the possible reasons is the retirement age for men. Some miners say it is simply unreachable for them. There's a mine in Kazakh producing heaps of coal. It is not a godforsaken place. For some, it's their heart and soul. Stepan Danshin, a miner in the third generation, is going to leave for Russia. He was born here in Shakhtinsk. He's a professional through and through after studying mining in 3 educational institutions, vocational school, college and university. Danshin came to work at the mine when he was 18, mining coal for his country for many years. Now he says he has to leave. Lots of people I know have left for Russia. They also work in mining. They work in Zabaikalsk region, in Anjero-Sudzinsk, in Kemerovo region, in Kuzbas. So many have left. First of all, the things are so much better organized. The equipment is mostly new over there. For a long time, Danshin has been in legal dispute with the former employer ArcelorMittal Temirtau company. 2 years ago, he was unfortunate enough to get injured in a longwall. The fact that the injury is job-related had to be proved in court. Danshin says that as soon as he got his disability status, the employer got rid of him immediately. The court made a verdict supporting the miner, but he still hasn't received any compensation. In addition, Danshin and other miners believe that the retirement age of 63 is far too much for their profession. The first priority is the retirement at 50. I'll work for 20 years over there and then retire, whereas here I would have to work for some foreigner till I'm 63. This work is very hard. The human body would not stand that for a long time. Once the body is worn out, one is simply thrown away like rubbish. A miner is always responsible for reimbursing employer for any caused damage, while the authorities are not keen on supporting workers. The head of Mining Family Association, who attend court hearings practically every day, defending the workers' rights, say the mood is quite tense in the mining community. If nothing changes in the nearest future, a mass exodus is possible. It is also quite probable that the miners would take the matters in their own hands, be it strikes or something else. Stepan Danshin is packing the bags already. He says that after all court hearings and humiliation, it is unlikely anything can persuade him to reverse his decision to leave his motherland. Kazakhstan's Forestry and Hunting Committee has imposed a ban on saiga hunting across the entire territory of the country until 2020. Kazakh authorities hope that with adoption of new amendments to the criminal and administrative codes, the damage inflicted by poachers will be reduced. Erlan Nasenbayev assumes that by the end of this year, hunters will feel the severity of amendments to the legislation. So far, though, the number of poaching reports is not subsiding. During the first quarter of 2012, 20 poaching attempts were registered, 8 of which involving rare saiga antelopes. We have to put an end to this wave of poaching. It is understandable that people have not yet realized the severity of their actions within the new legislative norm, which can lead to confiscation of property. On Friday, Astana hosted a national exhibition of wedding dresses. The most expensive one cost its owner more than $7,000.
The bride's name is kept under secret. It was only hinted that the groom is of very solid background. In general, conservative ladies from the capital prefer modest garments, though decorated with rich sequin and gathering. Exclusively designed gowns from Spain are especially popular amongst them, costing anywhere from $2,000 to $5,500 US. Garments designed in ethnic style are making a serious competition to the Western brands, including in price range. When it comes to wedding rings, daughters of ministers and other senior officials often prefer 750 rate white gold rings, starting at $1,000 US for pair. Additionally, it's a matter of honor for rich to invite local and international pop stars for their events. For instance, disco veterans Boney M will visit Kazakhstan for just $50,000, while Jennifer Lopez can charge a couple of millions. Unfortunately, event managing agencies do not disclose most details, as they are bound by confidentiality agreements. We sign a contract with each client outlining responsibilities and then additional confidentiality agreements with all photographers and videographers so that the files will not be leaked on YouTube or handed to third parties. This is indeed quite serious.
This is all we have time for this week. We'll return with more news on Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.